Hey guys, this is Puzzle Fox 5.0 coming at you again. In this next episode here, I'm going to be covering basically from the last video I had. We had the engine kind of set in there and we're working on getting the headers in. So I missed a few steps. I wasn't the best about always recording all the steps that we did, but we got the headers in. I missed installation of the transmission mount and getting all that stuff in there, getting the engine all set in, bolted in properly. Some of the work that we had done on getting the Mustang, for those that don't know, has a cable clutch. The Ranger had a hydraulic clutch, so I kind of skipped a few steps of getting that slave cylinder in there and plumbed up, but I touched on it a little bit in this video. Owen did a lot of work on researching getting the Mustang engine harness to marry up to the Ranger chassis harness, but he did have a few headaches on it. I did touch on there was an issue with the fuel pump relay. Also he had an issue with getting the starter to actually go with the key into the start position, but he did a lot of work on that. Basically uncovered some of the wiring from the chassis harness back and figuring out what wire we needed to get hooked up to what wires. So he did a lot of work there, got that working. So this video is going to talk about just some of the work we did and just some of the fun that we had with trying to get this engine started up. You'll notice later in the video there was a little bit of engine noise. It sounded like a lifter knock or something, tap at the end. I'll come back on at the end of the video and kind of give a little heads up of what we were experiencing, just because there was some gap in videos that I have. So I'll catch up with you again at the end of the video. So I hope you guys enjoy the content here and kind of go along for the ride that we had for getting the engine in the truck, getting it running, and getting the thing rolling on the road. Alright guys, it's been a while since we've checked out the Ranger. We haven't spent much time working on it recently, and now we got Owen's buddy Mitchell here, and Owen, and we're plugging away on the truck. Hold on, Owen. Yeah. So I just kind of wanted to show you what we're doing. We got the intake manifold on, and we're just getting stuff set up good enough that we can fire it up and make sure it runs in this truck. Owen's been working hard, and it's kind of a mess with wiring right now, but Owen did a bunch of research to try to figure out how to meld the Mustang harness into the Ranger harness, and what wires to connect and what wires needed to be looped back and forth. And I wish I could give you a little more detail on it, but I'll have Owen walk through the details later in a later video or part of this video or something. But what we were doing is the old, and besides the intake manifold being on now and everything kind of cleaned up and cleaning out bolt holes there so we could get that mounted up, but we were working on fuel lines. Well, the old fuel lines used to come up kind of, wasn't it right about here, Owen? Yeah, kind of up and around the steering box and up to like the back side of the 3-liter that used to be in here. Well, the Mustang has the fuel lines. The Mustang V8 has the fuel lines that come down into the passenger side of the engine there. You can kind of see them down at the bottom there, kind of the 2 silver rings down here. I wish you could see a little better, but you can kind of see them down there at the bottom, kind of next to the frame rail. So they came up the passenger side of the truck. So I ended up pulling all the fuel lines out of the bottom of the Mustang. So they used to come up right in this area and clip into the bottom of those rails that came down from the Mustang. So they ran up and around down the inside, so you had to take out the inner fender well here to even get to them, and pull them all out, and then they wound around underneath the bottom of the car all the way back and over the rear axle. And so I pulled all that out of there, And we actually have it run now, so it's running down the passenger side. And just to make things fit better, I actually ended up cutting the lines where they came back down the frame rail a little ways and just putting in some compression fitting junctions here. So we have a 1/4 inch and a 5/16 inch fuel line. And then they drop back down behind. Kind of out behind the spring perch here, then down underneath the frame rail, and underneath the frame rail, and then up and over and behind this cross member where the I-beams come back and hook in. So you can kind of see where they come across there and up from behind that I-beam connection there, or the radius arm where it comes back there. And then we got the fuel filter. Right up in here, so we have a quick disconnect that goes up to the front of the fuel filter up here. And then there's a quick disconnect here for the return line. What the bad part is, both the supply and return were 5/16 on the Ranger. So I actually got an adapter and put in so it connects up to the 1/4 inch on that side and adapts up to the 5/16. And then the supply line is the 5/16 too. So that's all set to go. So you can kind of see here we got all the headers kind of loosely bolted up, just good enough to fire up. Started drilling holes in them for the O2 sensor bungs, but we don't have the proper ones to put in there yet. Owen's putting the intake back on with the mass airflow sensor. Intake's on. Owen worked really hard, and we have the remote, the relocation, so the oil filter should go on there. But as you can see, it's got the adapter, and he's running some lines over, and he has the oil filter relocated right down here. So we're just kind of getting everything loose, and we're going to make sure everything runs and works, and then we're going to work on tidying everything up. Okay, we're going to try this again. Owen's going to hop in the cab. We got the battery hooked up, and we're going to hit the key for the first time. See if the fuel pump goes. I didn't hear your... Turn the key back off. There's no fuel pump. Nothing. You got the key on? There's no fuel pump. You want to hit the key and see if the starter goes?
Sure.
Alright, we're going to try hitting the key, see if the starter goes.
Nothing.
Alright, back to the drawing board. Alright, we're back again. It's probably been a couple of weeks again. Like I say, we don't get a ton of time to get out here just with the other things we have going on. But we've been messing around like the last few nights. We've been stumbled up by trying to get the fuel pump to kick on with the key. So Owen had taken and watched a video from another YouTuber about how to wire up the fuel pump relay and the fuel pump in with this V8 swap here. So here we actually have the original Ranger fuel relay, and we have it all wired up. So we have a switched power here that runs to what used to be the power for a carbon canister. Then here we have an always hot relay, or always hot wire that runs back up to the chassis harness here. Then we have wire here. Okay, this one runs back to the original wiring that went to the fuel pump relay that was in the Mustang. So it runs back to that. And this one runs back to the inertia switch, right, Owen?
Yep.
Okay, so this one runs the inertia switch.
And then it turns around at the inertia switch and comes to this pink wire, which runs all the way to the other side, to the pump.
Yeah, and everything's kind of a mess right now. and we're gonna come back later after we have everything wired up and running and get it all cleaned up. And then what we were really stumbling with was in the video that we watched, they said you don't use this last wire that's on this fuel pump or a fuel relay here. They said you don't use this wire. So we weren't doing anything with it and we were just getting hung up. So what we actually did was ran another wire back to where the fuel pump relay wiring went in the Mustang, because the fuel pump relay in the Mustang was actually under the seat, right, Owen?
Yeah.
So there's another bundle of wires that comes off of the ECM.
So this plugs in the Mustang. This plugs in, and then
It's a little bright. Here, I'm gonna do this.
this plugs into wiring that goes up underneath to underneath the driver's seat to the original fuel relay in the Mustang. So what we did was this wire here, it has the green and yellow there. It runs to the green and yellow on the fuel relay. And then this here, it's, if you can see in there, it's tan and green. There's two little wires that go into the same one little prong. And that one runs to the blue and orange, I'm pretty sure, the EEC test port.
Yep.
So that's what we do in there.
So now if you hit the key, just hit the key from right here. You can kind of hear it gurgling under there. It comes on, and I suppose we have a bunch of air in the system, so it's just trying to get itself all cleared out. But that's where we're at now. And actually what we're going to do next is when we hit the key, the starter doesn't kick on. So that's our next task at hand. So we're thinking if we can get that starter to actually kick, we should be able to get this thing fired up. So we'll come back and we'll let you know how we're doing and where we're at. This, guys, is the first start of a V8 Ranger. First try. First hit of the key. All this trouble of trying to find the wiring and getting the fuel pump to come on and getting the starter to go with the key, and he hardly cranks it for half a second. And it's running. Rev it. Just a little bit. Oh, that's right. Check this out, ladies and gentlemen. Purrs like a kitten. But we've done a lot of work here, or I should say Owen's done a lot of work. So we ended up getting a different bracket for the alternator to kind of move it over. He's got all the heating lines hooked up, heater hose lines. He's got the radiator hooked up. We don't have coolant in it right now just because we want to try something here. The last time we fired it up, I thought I heard some lifter noise, so I don't know if it was some other noise that I don't like to hear or if it was like a header gasket. So Owen replaced the header gaskets and put new header gaskets on it. Right now it's just straight pipes. Fuel's hooked up. We got a clutch all plumbed. So under here, we got a slave cylinder hooked up and all plumbed. He's just got a compression fitting there with a Delrin like a ferrule in it. And if you can see here, oh, and push the clutch. We got the clutch working. So that's awesome. A Nissan 240SX slave cylinder, right?
So I think it was a 1986 or
Okay. So we got all that hooked up, and we got that all bled out, and that's working, or it looks like it's working. So, and we got the Mustang. It's the Mustang power steering pump, right? All right. So we did go back, and he tried the Ranger one, but the low pressure hose fitting pointed straight off the back, so it wasn't. It was pointing right at the oil pressure sending unit, right? So he went back and put the Mustang power steering one on and just kind of trimmed this hose up a little bit. We did get rid of all the air pump, the smog pump and everything. So basically all we're running is the power steering pump and the alternator. So he just got a shorter hose for that, measured that out, and it should be working right. So this will be the first time we're firing it up with all the accessories on it. Oh, I was going to point out here too, we ended up getting a radiator. We think this is out of like a late 90s Explorer, and I think it's a 4-liter radiator. But I think you saw before that with the stock Ranger one, this upper inlet to the radiator was pointing straight at the alternator pulley when we had the original Mustang alternator bracket on there. So we got this aftermarket one. I think we got that from Jegs, and we got this, but then the radiator was about an inch or inch and a quarter thicker. So Owen did a lot of hard work here, and as you can see, this used to be straight across from side to side. So he cut all this out, then boxed it in with some sheet metal, and still has the nice little tabs you can kind of see in there for the radiator.
Yeah, so I have little tabs there, and then I drilled little holes here to put little clips in for that wire harness.
So the wiring harness is still run ahead of the
and
radiator.
These little these little things here that mount the wiring harness right there. I took them off. I flipped them around because this bit used to go into the back of it, so I flipped it so it's on the front.
So the wire harness used to go behind the old radiator, right, or not?
It went in front of it still. It was just the
Okay.
radiator was farther ahead, so it had much more room.
The radiator was further back towards the back of the truck. So
now we have more room between this radiator and the engine and the stock radiator had.
So he's done a lot of work to get that mounted up there, a lot of cutting and grinding and welded in the tabs on the bottom. Like I said, all the fluids are in here right now except for coolant. So we're gonna give it a shot here and see how it goes. For the first time. Nice and easy, Owen. All right, push it in. All right, here's Owen. This is its first time out of the garage in about a year with a V8 in it. Rolling on its own with a V8. like frying underneath.
Yeah. Oh, Mr. Anderson put some nice wheels on this truck.
Outside the garage. So I hope you enjoyed that. As I said before at the beginning of the video, we had some lifter noise, or that's what we thought it was. After a little bit of running, the tick kind of went away. And Owen actually drove it a little bit, put a few miles on it. Didn't really seem like we had any issues, and it was running pretty good. And then we started experiencing a little bit more and more noise. So I'll leave that kind of as an ending point of where we were at. And in my next video, we'll be talking about some issues that we had after a while of driving the truck. So I'll leave it as kind of a cliffhanger for you guys. So hopefully you come back and watch our next video of issues that we had and what we did to overcome that. So I'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.